Just after midnight on March 13, 2020, 26-year-old Breonna Taylor lay asleep in her own home. Hours later, she would never wake up. A licensed EMT. A frontline medical worker. A black woman killed in the sanctity of her own apartment. Right away, we dig into the story behind the name, Breonna Taylor. How one raid, one warrant, one knock on the door, ignited a national reckoning about policing, race, and justice.
Welcome to Black Her Truth.
Location, apartment number 4, 3003, Springfield Drive, Louisville, Kentucky. Early morning hours, March 13th. The officers involved belonged to the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, Narcotics Unit. The warrant, a so-called no-knock search. The target, not Breonna Taylor, but her home. The result, her death. This case is about more than one tragic death. It's about the intersection of policing practices, racial justice, the value placed on black women's lives, and a system that many say still fails to protect them. When the world heard her name, Breonna Taylor, they heard an echo of so many others. But this story also sparked reform. It sparked debate. It forced a city, a nation, to ask, whose lives matter? And whose justice are we content with? Let's begin at the beginning, and then follow the trail of evidence, decisions, and outcomes. Because if we don't ask the hard questions, the same mistakes may repeat. Let's back up for a moment. Before the raid, before the shots, there was a life. A young black woman with ambition, care for others, and a home. This is the real story of Breonna Taylor. Breonna Shaquille Taylor was born on June 5, 1993, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. As a teenager, her family moved to Louisville, Kentucky, where she attended Western High School. Her teachers recalled she was a natural leader and cared deeply about others. After high school, Breonna followed her passion for healthcare. She became certified as an emergency medical technician, EMT, in June 2016 and worked for the city of Louisville until November 2016. While the records show her EMT role ended then, her family states she continued working in healthcare as an emergency room tech at hospitals in Louisville. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, helping people, being that calm in a crisis, the kind of person so often invisible until you need them. At the time of her death on March 13, 2020, Breonna was 26 years old. She lived in an apartment in Louisville's South End, sharing a home with her younger sister. Her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, was with her that early morning. They were at home, asleep, unaware that this night would change everything. Now let's set up what led to the raid. A narcotics investigation was underway. The target, a man named Jamarcus Glover, who lived elsewhere but allegedly used Breonna's address for package delivery. On March 12, 2020, officers from the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, obtained a no-knock search warrant for Breonna's apartment as part of that drug investigation. The warrant alleged, among other things, that packages were being sent to her address for Glover. But the later investigations found that the postal worker checked and concluded there were no packages of concern addressed to that apartment. Breonna had no known criminal history for drugs or violence. Neither did Kenneth Walker. Despite this, her home became the site of one of America's most scrutinized police raids. So here's the stage, a young black woman, dedicated to helping others, asleep in her own home. A raid based on a warrant listing her apartment. A target tracked elsewhere. A night that would lead to tragedy and national reckoning. Next, we move into the night of March 13th. What happened in the minutes before the door was breached, and how events unfolded. Shortly after midnight on March 13, 2020, in the quiet of the early morning at apartment 4, 3003, Springfield Drive in Louisville, Kentucky, the stage was set for tragedy. This is the raid that took the life of Breonna Taylor. The apartment complex at 3003, Springfield Drive housed Taylor and her boyfriend Kenneth Walker. They were asleep. According to official records, officers from the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, had obtained a no-knock search warrant earlier that day. Around 12:40 a.m. local time, plainclothes LMPD officers battered down the door to the apartment. The officers involved included Jonathan Mattingly, Miles Cosgrove, and Brett Hankison. According to police statements, they did announce themselves before entry. Walker maintains they did not. Walker testified he thought the apartment was being broken into by intruders. When officers forced entry with a battering ram, Walker fired one shot, which struck Officer Mattingly in the leg. In response, officers fired a barrage of bullets, more than 20 rounds, into the apartment. Taylor was struck multiple times and died at the scene. At the scene, no drugs or drug trafficking evidence was found in Taylor's apartment. Additionally, the warrant affidavit claimed that a U.S. postal inspector had verified packages at Taylor's address, but in truth, the Postal Inspection Service said that no such confirmation occurred. In that one raid, a home invaded at night, a single gunshot, dozens more in return. A young black woman who worked on the front lines of health care lay dead in her own home. A warrant, weak at its foundation. A neighborhood shocked. A nation stirred. Shortly after the shooting early on March 13, 2020, officers from the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, placed the three officers involved, Jonathan Mattingly, Miles Cosgrove, and Brett Hankison, on administrative reassignment as the department's Professional Integrity Unit opened an internal inquiry. Meanwhile, Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, who fired a shot, believing intruders were breaking in, was arrested and booked on charges of attempted murder of a police officer. No drugs were found in Taylor's apartment in the immediate sweep. On March the 12th and 13th, the narcotics investigation that led to the warrant was already underway. The warrant for Taylor's residence stemmed from a case involving Jamaica's Glover, suspected of drug trafficking and allegedly using Taylor's address for mail delivery. As the sheriffs and city officials reviewed what happened, the federal government got involved. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, opened a civil rights investigation in May 2020 seeking to determine whether the raid and subsequent actions violated Taylor's constitutional rights. At the local level, the investigations revealed troubling procedural failures. The warrant affidavit contained claims of postal inspection verification that the USPS later said did not occur. Within weeks, the killing of Breonna Taylor became a flashpoint for protests in Louisville and across the U.S. Many activists and community members invoked the hashtag #JusticeForBreonna and emphasized the loss of black women's lives and safety in policing debates. Her mother, Tamika Palmer, and sister publicly expressed frustration that no officer had yet been charged with her death, calling the situation no accountability after a year. The investigations grew to reveal deeper systemic issues. In March 2023, the United States Department of Justice issued a report finding that LMPD and the city engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that violated constitutional rights, highlighting excessive force, racial discrimination, and use of invalid search warrants. As a direct consequence, Louisville passed an ordinance, often referenced as Breonna's Law, to ban no-knock warrants and implement stronger police use of force policies. In the wake of one woman's death, the ripples became a wave. Investigations that began at home grew into federal actions. The quiet of a South End apartment gave way to the voices of a city and a nation demanding change. Yet the question remained, would the system produce real accountability, or simply new protocols without justice? Following the March 13, 2020 raid and death of Breonna Taylor, initial public attention was largely local. But by late May and early June, momentum grew. On May 28 in Louisville, some 500 to 600 demonstrators marched downtown demanding to arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Across the country, protesters chanted "Say her name," carried signs reading #Justice for Breonna, and connected her case with broader struggles against police violence toward Black Americans. The protests weren't always peaceful. In Louisville especially, clashes occurred between police and protesters. For example, during one demonstration in late September 2020, 2 officers were shot and over 100 people were arrested. While Louisville streets were the first battleground, the case quickly entered national and even global conversation. Media outlets, celebrities, and activists amplified Breonna's name, linking her death to systemic racial injustice and policing practices. Major cities like New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Portland, and Los Angeles saw demonstrations specifically citing Breonna Taylor alongside other victims of police violence. The hashtags #Breonna Taylor, #Justice for Breonna, and #Black Women Justice circulated widely on social media, helping ensure the case remained visible, an important factor for public pressure and institutional response. The sustained public pressure did produce measurable institutional reactions. The protests contributed to a federal investigation. In March 2023, the United States Department of Justice, DOJ, found that the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, had engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct violating constitutional rights and disproportionately harming Black residents. These outcomes demonstrate how a local tragedy fed into wider reform efforts, though reform and accountability remain works in progress. More than just protests, Breonna Taylor's case reshaped the narrative around Black women's vulnerability in policing. Legal and civic organizations point out that while many campaigns historically focused on Black men, her story highlighted the need to center Black women in the fight for justice. Yet, the legacy is mixed. Although policy changes happened, many activists remain frustrated by the lack of direct criminal homicide charges for the officers involved, a key demand of the movement. Her name became a rallying cry. But the question remains, do cries for justice translate into justice done? In September 2020, the city of Louisville agreed to a historic $12 million wrongful death settlement with Taylor's family. The settlement stipulated major reforms for the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, including changes in how warrants are authorized and executed. Notably, the settlement did not admit wrongdoing by the officers or city, but it constituted one of the largest amounts paid for the killing of a Black woman by police in U.S. history. At the state level, a Jefferson County grand jury in Kentucky reviewed the case in 2020. On September 23, a grand jury charged former Detective Brett Hankison with 3 counts of felony wanton endangerment for firing shots into a neighboring apartment, not directly for Taylor's death. The grand jury did not bring homicide charges against any of the officers who fired at Taylor's apartment. That decision stirred widespread public frustration and questions about accountability. In August 2022, the United States Department of Justice, DOJ, announced federal civil rights indictments against Hankison and 3 other officers, Kelly Goodlett, Joshua Janes, and Kyle Meany, for conspiring to falsify the warrant affidavit that led to the raid. In November 2024, a federal jury found Hankison guilty of one count of depriving Taylor of her civil rights by using excessive force. On July 21, 2025, Judge Rebecca Grady Jennings sentenced Hankison to 33 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. The DOJ had requested just 1 day in prison, which sparked criticism from Taylor's family and civil rights advocates who felt the sentence was too lenient given the gravity of the case. The officers involved in obtaining the warrant now face trial, Janes and Meany. Their charges were modified in 2024, 2 felony counts dropped to misdemeanors. The question of which officer fired the fatal shot remains unresolved publicly. One of the officers, Miles Cosgrove, was found to have likely fired it, but was not charged. What does legal accountability look like in a case like this? 1 federal conviction. A large settlement. Landmark reforms. But also no murder charges against the officers who killed Breonna Taylor. For many, this outcome raises uncomfortable questions. Does justice require more than civil settlements? Are the structural changes enough if individuals are not held criminally responsible? The legal journey of this case is far from over. Shortly after the tragedy, the Louisville Metro Council unanimously passed a significant ordinance on June 11, 2020, known as Breonna's Law, which banned the use of no-knock search warrants within Louisville Metro. Among the changes, every officer serving a warrant must wear a body camera that's activated at least 5 minutes before the warrant and kept on until 5 minutes after. These reforms reflected a direct response to the way the raid was executed, with a no-knock warrant and officers entering at night while the target was asleep, thus touching on the House of Policing practices. In March 2023, the United States Department of Justice, DOJ, released a comprehensive report saying that the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, and the city had a pattern or practice of violating residents' constitutional rights. This included excessive use of force, discriminatory stops and searches, and reliance on invalid search warrants. Later, the DOJ announced an agreement with the city and LMPD to enact systemic reforms. However, in 2025 the DOJ announced it would pursue withdrawing the court-enforceable consent decree that accompanied the reform agreement, an action that sparked concern among advocates. While reforms are on the books, multiple sources suggest the journey is far from complete. 5 years after Taylor's death, reporting indicates many reform measures remain incomplete, internal culture issues persist at LMPD, and community trust remains low. The decision by the DOJ to pull back from the consent decree raised fears that oversight and accountability might weaken. The question of criminal accountability still looms. Although some officers have been charged, the core question remains whether the reforms match the harm done. Breonna Taylor's death resonated far beyond Louisville. The case amplified concerns about policing and the safety of Black women in America, often underrepresented in discussions of police violence. It contributed to the national conversation around no-knock warrants and how they should be limited or eliminated. It elevated the hashtags #Breonna Taylor, #Justice for Breonna, and the broader theme Black women justice, linking race, gender, and policing in new ways. Change has come, but change is not the same as completion. The laws were passed. Promises were made. But for many in Louisville and beyond, the scars remain. And the question remains, when we speak of reform, when we talk of legacy, is it enough to write the law if what lies beneath doesn't change? The death of Breonna Taylor shook a nation, and yet, 5 years later, many of the hardest questions remain unanswered. The questions are, what does justice look like now? What's truly changed? And what lies ahead for her legacy? Why did the city agree to a $12 million settlement with Taylor's family if no officer had been charged for her death? Why did the state grand jury refuse to consider homicide charges against the officers who fired the shots? How much did the flawed warrant process, including misleading statements to the court, contribute to the raid? And fundamentally, even with reforms, will change in policy translate into change in practice? These lingering questions aren't just legal, they're moral and societal. They challenge us to reckon not only with what happened the night of March 13, 2020, but with what it means for policing, trust, and black women justice. Policy reform is visible. Breonna's law, bans on no-knock warrants, bodycam rules. But culture, the internal mindset of institutions, the way communities feel about the police, is harder to shift. Advocates warn that reform isn't automatic. According to the ACLU, true justice for Breonna Taylor won't come from criminal charges alone. Even in Louisville, compliance and oversight remain contested. Without trust, victims' families and communities may still feel the system leaves them behind. Taylor's story also widened the frame of the conversation. Many policing debates centered on black men, but her case brought focus to black women and the unique vulnerabilities they face. Her name became a rallying cry under hashtags like #JusticeForBreonna and #BlackWomenJustice. And yet, many feel that although she is named, her case remains incomplete. The disparity between recognition and redress remains. Looking ahead, reforming warrant processes nationwide, strengthening civilian oversight of police, ensuring that policy changes become enforceable and backed by accountability, not just legislation, keeping community voices, especially black women's voices, at the center of justice reform. Taylor's legacy lives not only in law, but in the expectations of a society demanding better. Her life was short. A 26-year-old EMT, a young black woman living in Louisville, whose death sparked a movement. Her name bears meaning now. But if we are honest, a name alone is not enough. Justice must be visible. Change must be real. And we must not move on until both are true. In remembering Breonna Taylor, we commit not just to memory, but to action. This is her story. This is our responsibility. Thank you for watching. If you found this story impactful and want to help keep these kinds of stories from being forgotten, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, stay with us.